I wouldn't say an advantage, but Coach Anderson put me in a system where it made me flourish a lot because I was asked to do the things that big men aren't really asked to do. I was asked to step out and guard guards. I was asked to guard the pick and roll, switch on guards. So Coach Anderson made me do a lot of things that I wasn't comfortable doing. He made me step outside my comfort zone. So I wouldn't say that I made an advantage, but I have a slight uplift than everyone else.
Besides the hard work, what makes you a special person and a special player?
Low maintenance, high character guy. I'm a guy that breeds himself, on, being myself. I won't step outside, not being myself, And another thing that makes me great is that, I can do a lot of different things with the basketball. I can play without the ball or I can play with it, so it doesn't matter to me.
Gar, curious your reaction to Kirk picking up his player option and also just the general plan. I know you talked about this a little bit last week, general plan moving into free agency.
Well, we're happy that Kirk picked up his option, and we think he's a very valuable piece to our team. It has been in the past, and I know we feel that way and Fred feels that way moving forward, so we were excited about that. In general, we've talked about we don't have the same type of flexibility we've had, for instance, last summer, and a lot of our improvement will have to be internal. The most important pieces of our summer are retaining some of the guys that we had. Obviously, Jimmy Butler, we talked about we're going to talk to Mike Dunleavy and would like to bring him back. Of course, bring Bobby into the fold. And after that, there won't be a lot of flexibility. We'll have another spot or two to fill, but not a lot of money to do anything on a major scale.
Bobby, when guys play with a lot of emotion, as we've learned you have, they'll often say it's for themselves, to keep themselves fired up and motivated. But I'm curious what sort of effect it's had on your teammates for you to be an emotional guy out there, and also any particular response from any opponents.
I've always been a guy that plays with a lot of passion. I play with that because I feel like, as a kid, I wasn't the most talented. I wasn't the most, I didn't have like some of the skills that other players had. So I had to find something that can make me a good basketball player. So I channeled that into, just me trying to play as hard as I can and trying to have that passion on the court. And, I feel like my passion always uplifts my teammates. I make my teammates play harder and I make my teammates play hard like I do. So I think that's something I can bring, instantly. It's just me playing hard and make everyone else play hard. And I really got that from my mom. She always told me to be a sponge out there on the court, just be that garbage man. Even if I don't get the ball, go get it off the offensive glass and put it back in. That's really where I got it from.
Hi Bobby, how important is for you to have a veteran player like Pau Gasol in the team?
Very important. He's a guy that he's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. So for me to come in and learn from him, I think that's a great fit for me because I get to learn from a Hall of Famer. Most players don't get this opportunity to learn from veterans. They're thrown into the fire right off. So I'm glad I'm not thrown into the fire. I can learn a little bit and grow as a player.
Bobby, you've played against Fred Hoiberg's teams. What did you learn about him as a coach that maybe can help you as you transition into the Bulls?
He plays a lot of read and react offense. He makes his players, play off their instincts a lot. Basically he lets his players play. If you can dribble, he's gonna let you dribble. If you can shoot, he's gonna let you shoot. So he does a lot of different things with his players. So that's something that I feel like I'm out flourishing, his offense and his defenses.
Fred, you've mentioned his ability to play both inside and outside with obviously such a premium on shooting in today's game. Where does his jumper or his range stand at this point in your estimation, and can it improve?
Well, I think it can always improve, Casey, but I saw firsthand just how versatile he is. He took us out in the perimeter. He was hitting shots, hit threes against us in our game this year. The thing I'm most impressed with is how he runs the floor, and he played, for a guy I respect as much as any in the business, and Mike Anderson, because of the different things that he's asked to do on the floor. It is a system where they switch a lot, so he does guard perimeter players. Just with the offense the way it is, they don't have set positions. Pretty similar to what we did a lot last year. We inverted the floor. We'd ask all our players to learn all the different spots on the floor, and I think it'll be seamless for him because of the fact that he played in a system like that, where he was asked to do a lot of things, and that's what he is. That's who Bobby is as a basketball player. That's what we saw leading into our game when we were scouting. Arkansas is just, you know, how are we going to slow this kid down, because he can make shots, shoots at a very high rate, very good going to the glass, and he just does so many things. And that's the thing I think that we were all so excited about in the office, was he is a basketball player, and those are the kind of guys that we like in our system.
Bobby, how's the way you were raised, you know, in Little Rock and your upbringing and, you know, just growing up there, how does that play into the passion that you play with now as a player?
You know, as a kid, I feel like that makes you work harder, because, you know, you live in a city where, like, no one really makes it. You know, you have guys like Joe Johnson and Derek Fisher who are the select few that gets it out, but other than that, you know, you can't name anyone else besides Darren McFadden who played football. Besides those two, you can't name anyone. So, you know, as a kid, I wanted to be that guy that, you know, like my brothers can look up to and other kids can look up to. So now I've gotten to this position now that, you know, I have to run with it and make myself a better basketball player, so kids back home can look up to someone. You know, I never had that guy I looked up to besides Coley Williamson, but, you know, he's not from our city. You know, he's from Russellville, so he was never there for me to, you know, talk to or, you know, reach out to.
Bobby, who do you compare your game to? Who did you pattern yourself after coming up?
I like Kevin Garnett because, you know, of the intensity and the passion that he plays with. Also, you know, his versatility out there on the floor. He does a lot of different things to make his basketball team a great team. You know, he blocks shots, rebounds, runs the floor, and he plays as hard as he can. You know, I try to take some of that from his game and, you know, put it into my game.
For Fred, over here to your right. The Warriors had great success switching screens defensively, kind of a key component of their title. Is Bobby a guy that can do that for you guys, and just what's your philosophy defensively, switching a lot of screens and such like that?
Sure. Well, yeah, and Bobby has done it. So, you know, he's got a leg up coming into this at this level where you have to play different ways. You have to switch up. You know, we will have our primary way of playing ball screens, but you have to have a secondary way of doing it as well. And a lot of times you change during the game when you make adjustments. Yeah, so, you know, we will have our primary way. Is switching one of those? Yes, it will be.
Hey, Bobby, 2 questions for you. In terms of goals that you have for yourself, I saw that you had a list of 9 things you want to accomplish going into your 11th grade year. What do you have set for yourself coming into the NBA? And then second question, I also read you're a very frugal spender, but you had some big plans for your mother. Any comment on what you're planning to get for her?
For the first question, I don't have any individual goals. I'm always a team guy, you know. Coach Anderson always told me that the cream rises to the top at the end of the season, so I don't have to plan out any individual goals, because if you play well, you know, they're going to come regardless. So I'm a team guy, you know. First off, I want to win as many games as we can win, and then I want to take my team, you know, to a place that, you know, they haven't seen in a long time. So I'm a team guy, and, you know, I'm not a spender. I'm a guy that if I spend, you know, $10 on a sandwich, I'm going to go back in my bank account and look and see how much money I got left. So I'm not a spender at all, you know. But, you know, I will give my mom something special, because I just feel like she deserves it. You know, she's a woman that, you know, she worked hard to provide for me and my 3 little brothers, and she even got up, you know, from work, and she took me to practice like right after I got out from high school practice to another gym and practice. So I just owe her a lot.
Oh, we got one more?
If you're acquainted with Bulls legend Pete Myers, who's from Arkansas, Little Rock?
I think did I just talk to him? I think I just talked to him, and he asked me a question, who's the best basketball player out of Little Rock, and I said myself. He started laughing.
Here you go, Bobby. Mobile. Thanks, bro.